No one laughed anymore in the village. Not because laughter was forbidden, but because it had disappeared on its own. Hunger had a way of silencing things. Even the children played quietly now, their games shorter, their voices low, as if sound itself cost too much energy. Anansi noticed it first when an evening passed without a single story. The elders sat under the old tree, backs bent, eyes dull. The fire crackled, but no one spoke. Children waited at a distance, hopeful at first, then restless, then disappointed. A boy finally asked, "Grandfather, where is the story for tonight?" The old man sighed. "There are none left." The words fell heavier than the silence. Anansi felt them land inside his chest. Stories had once been the village's food when food ran out. They taught patience, warned against pride, explained why things were the way they were. Now, without them, people argued more. Children disobeyed without fear. Even adults forgot themselves. A woman muttered, "We live like animals now." Another replied, "Animals at least know when to stop eating." Anansi said nothing, but his ears burned. He was not respected in the village. Everyone knew him as clever, but clever people were rarely trusted. He talked too much, asked too many questions, smiled at the wrong times. Still, he listened. That night, he followed the elders as they walked away from the fire. "Why have the stories stopped?" Anansi asked suddenly. The elders turned, surprised. One of them, Kwaku, shook his head. "Stories no longer belong to us." "Then who owns them?" Anansi pressed. Kwaku looked up at the sky. "Nyame." The name settled heavily between them. "The Sky Father?" Anansi asked. "Yes," another elder said. "Long ago, stories were free, but people twisted them, used them to lie, to boast, to cheat. Nyame took them back." Anansi frowned. "And now?" "Now," Kwaku said, "we survive without them." Anansi watched the elders walk away. He did not agree. The next morning, the village woke to bad news. A fight had broken out between two brothers over land. Words turned into blows. Blood stained the dirt. Without stories, a woman whispered, "People forget who they are." Anansi stood at the edge of the crowd, his mind racing. By afternoon, the decision had formed inside him, solid and dangerous. If stories were pepped in the sky, he would go there. People laughed when he said it out loud. "You?" one man scoffed. "You cannot even climb the palm tree without falling." Anansi smiled. "The sky is higher than a palm tree, but I am patient." That night, he stood alone outside his hut, staring upward. "Nyame," he called softly, unsure if calling was foolish or brave. "You took the stories. I have come for them." The sky remained silent. The next day, Anansi climbed the tallest tree near the village, not to reach the sky, but to be seen trying. Villagers gathered, shaking their heads. "Cleverness has finally broken him," someone said. At the top, Anansi raised his hands. "If stories are not for us, then tell us why." This time, the sky answered. Not with thunder, not with fire, with a voice that felt like it came from everywhere at once. "Stories are not free," Nyame said. Anansi's heart pounded. "Neither is ignorance." A murmur ran through the village. Nyame's voice continued, "If you want stories, bring me their price." Anansi swallowed. "Name it." Silence stretched. Then Nyame spoke again. "Bring me what terrifies your people, what controls them, what makes them forget wisdom." Anansi climbed down slowly. The villagers stared at him, afraid to speak. That night, the elders confronted him. "You should not have spoken," Kwaku said. "You should not have accepted," another added. Anansi looked around. "You prefer silence?" They had no answer. Over the next days, Nyale's demand became clearer. 3 trials, 3 captures, each representing something that ruled human behavior more than hunger ever could. Fear, pride, greed. Anansi listened carefully as the elders whispered warnings. "These things destroy men," one said. Anansi smiled faintly. Then maybe men should understand them. He began with fear. There was a man in a nearby settlement known for terrorizing traders. People avoided his path. His reputation was enough to empty roads. Anansi visited him, smiling. "You must be very powerful," Anansi said. The man laughed, swelling with pride. That was how Anansi worked. He never attacked directly. He waited for people to trap themselves. By the time Anansi returned to the village, people whispered his name differently, not with mockery, with caution. But something else had changed too. Anansi liked the attention. When children pointed at him, he stood taller. When adults listened, he spoke longer. That night, as he lay on his mat, he stared at the roof and smiled. "Soon," he whispered, "stories will fall because of me." The sky watched quietly and said nothing. Fear lived just beyond the village, and everyone knew where to find it. People did not speak his real name anymore. They spoke around it. They warned children with silence. Traders crossed the road early when they heard his footsteps. Even the elders lowered their voices when his shadow passed near the market. Anansi walked toward that settlement alone. As he went, doubt crept in quietly. Not fear. Anansi knew fear too well to mistake it, but the kind of doubt that asked dangerous questions. What if I fail? What if stories never return? He pushed the thoughts aside. Failure was for people who tried with their hands. Anansi tried with his mouth. The man they feared sat outside his compound, sharpening a blade that did not need sharpening. He looked up slowly when Anansi approached. "You are lost," the man said. Anansi smiled. "If I were lost, fear would have swallowed me already." The man paused. That was the first hook. "You are brave," he said finally. "No," Anansi replied, sitting on a stone without invitation. "I am curious." The man laughed, a short, sharp sound. Curiosity kills faster than blades. "Only when it asks the wrong questions," Anansi said. "I came to ask the right ones." They spoke until the sun lowered. Anansi did not challenge the man's power. He polished it. He repeated stories the man liked to hear about himself. He nodded at the right moments. He listened more than he spoke. By nightfall, the man walked with Anansi back toward the village. Not as a captive, as a proof. Fear followed Anansi willingly, wrapped in pride. When Nyami's voice came that night, it was closer than before. "One," Nyami said. The villagers murmured. They had seen it with their own eyes. Fear had moved. Fear had listened. But Anansi did not rest. The second challenge revealed itself without warning. Pride did not hide outside the village. It lived inside it. It wore fine cloth and loud laughter. It corrected elders mid-sentence. It reminded people of favors long after they were repaid. Anansi did not confront pride. He fed it. "You speak well," Anansi said one afternoon, loud enough for others to hear. "You should speak more," he added another day. "People listen when you talk," he said again. Pride swelled. Soon, the man Anansi praised spoke before elders finished. He decided disputes he had no right to decide. He interrupted stories with his own versions. At first, people laughed. Then they grew tired. When conflict erupted, Anansi stepped back and watched. "You see," Anansi told the elders quietly, "pride needs no trap. It trips over itself." When the village turned on the man, stripping him of respect, Nyame's voice returned. 2. The sky felt closer now. Anansi should have stopped there. He should have rested. He should have remembered why he began. But something had changed. People looked at him differently. Children followed him. Elders waited for his opinion before speaking. His name traveled faster than the lesson. Anansi noticed and liked it. The third challenge arrived slowly. Greed did not announce itself. It blended in. It prayed loudly and shared little. It spoke of sacrifice while collecting more than it gave. Anansi searched for it in others and found it easily. Then one night, alone, he felt it inside himself. When a child said, "Tell us another story, Anansi," he felt taller. When elders said, "Wait, let Anansi speak," he felt important. This is necessary, he told himself. Someone must guide the stories. Nyame's voice came without warning. "Bring me what you value most." Anansi opened his mouth to answer and stopped. He thought of the village. Then he realized the truth frightened him. What he valued most was not the stories. It was being needed. Anansi climbed again, higher than before. The sky was thick with stories now, like ripe fruit waiting to fall. "I have paid your price," he said. "Give them all to me." Nyame did not thunder. Nyame asked quietly, "Why you?" Anansi hesitated. "Because," he said carefully, "without me they were empty." The silence that followed was heavier than refusal. Finally, the sky spoke. "Take them." Stories spilled downward, laughter, wisdom, warnings, songs. The village came alive again. Children danced, elders smiled, and Anansi stood at the center. At first he shared freely, then he corrected elders, then he adjusted endings, then he reminded people who climbed for them. "Without me," Anansi laughed one night, "you would still be silent." Some elders exchanged uneasy glances. The sky watched and said nothing. Stories returned to the village like rain after drought. At first, they came gently. An old woman remembered a tale about patience and shared it by the fire. Children leaned closer. A hunter retold a story his father once told him, and men nodded, as if remembering themselves. Laughter found its way back into the night, cautious at first, then bold. People said, "We have missed this." They also said, "Anansi brought them back." Anansi heard that sentence more than any other. When stories were told, people looked at him first. When a lesson landed, they glanced in his direction, as if checking whether it had his approval. Even when he said nothing, his silence carried weight. At first, he pretended not to notice. Then, he began to enjoy it. Children followed him during the day, tugging at his wrapper. "Tell us one," they begged, "just one." Elders invited him to sit closer to the fire. "Your memory is sharp," they said. "You remember details we forget." Anansi smiled modestly, but inside something warmed. "I earned this," he told himself. "Without me, the sky would still be closed." Soon he began to interrupt. Not often, just enough. "That is not how it ends," he would say gently when an elder paused. "The clever man does not lose in that version." The elder would hesitate, then nod. "Ah, yes, you are right." Anansi's versions spread faster. The lessons began to change. Stories that once warned against pride now praised clever escape. Stories that taught patience began to admire shortcuts. Children laughed louder at trickery than at kindness. One evening, Kwaku pulled Anansi aside. "Stories are not trophies," the old man said quietly. "They are mirrors." Anansi laughed, "And mirrors need someone brave enough to look." Kwaku frowned. "Be careful which reflection you polish." Anansi walked away before the words could sink in. The sky remained silent. Weeks passed. The village prospered in small ways. Arguments still happened, but they ended with words, not fists. People credited the stories. They also credited Anansi. When disputes arose, they called him. When questions formed, they asked him. When elders disagreed, they looked to him. Anansi began to feel something dangerous, indispensable. One night, during a crowded gathering, a young man stood and told a story about a trickster who fooled everyone and walked away alone. "That is not the lesson," Anansi interrupted sharply. "The lesson is that clever people survive." The young man hesitated. "But the elder who taught me said..." "Your elder is wrong," Anansi said. Silence fell. The fire crackled loudly, as if uncomfortable. Kwaku rose slowly. Stories grow when shared, not when owned. Anansi's jaw tightened. Ownership is responsibility. That night, Anansi climbed again. Not because Nyame called, because Anansi wanted assurance. The sky felt farther now, heavier. "Stories are flowing," Anansi said. "The village thrives." "Yes, but you bend them." Anansi scoffed. "I guide them.
You center them on yourself. Anansi felt anger rise. If I step away, they fall apart. The sky was quiet for a long time. Then Niame spoke, softer than before. Wisdom that needs a single voice is already broken. Anansi descended unsettled, but not convinced. The next day, he announced something new. We will gather stories only here, he said, pointing beneath the tree, to preserve accuracy. Elders exchanged glances. Some nodded reluctantly. Stories became scheduled, controlled, filtered. When someone told a version Anansi disliked, he corrected it publicly. Laughter followed, directed at the teller. Shame replaced sharing. Children stopped speaking freely. They waited for Anansi to begin. And Anansi enjoyed the quiet power. Then the sky acted, not with thunder, with absence. One night, a child asked Anansi for a story. He opened his mouth and nothing came. His mind was blank. He laughed it off. Tomorrow. But tomorrow came with the same emptiness. Stories faltered, words tangled, lessons lost clarity. People whispered again, maybe stories don't belong to one man. Anansi felt fear for the first time since climbing. He climbed again in desperation. The sky did not answer. He slipped, not far, just enough to remind him of height. Below, the village waited. And for the first time since stories fell, Anansi felt them slipping away.
The village woke to a strange quiet. Not the peaceful quiet of rest, but the tense quiet that follows a mistake no one wants to name. People went about their work, yet eyes kept lifting toward the sky, as if expecting something to fall or refuse to. Stories no longer flowed the way they had. When elders gathered beneath the tree, words came slowly. A tale would begin strong, then lose its way. Lessons wandered, endings felt wrong. Children shifted impatiently, confused by stories that once held them spellbound. Someone whispered, maybe the sky is closing again. The whisper spread. Anansi felt it before anyone said his name. Children no longer ran to him first. Elders spoke without waiting for his nod. His silence, once powerful, now felt empty. That night, Kwaku came to him. You climbed too high, the old man said. Anansi bristled. I climbed so they wouldn't starve. They were starving for wisdom, not for you. The word struck deeper than Anansi wanted to admit. He laughed sharply. If I step away now, everything collapses. Then it was already collapsing, Kwaku said. Before Anansi could respond, the sky darkened, not with clouds, with presence. Nyame's voice came slowly, heavier than ever before. You have bent what was meant to flow. Anansi raised his chin. I protected it. You controlled it. They needed guidance. They needed trust. Anansi felt heat rush through him. Without me, stories fall into chaos. Nyame answered calmly. Then let chaos teach. The wind rose suddenly, whipping dust and ash into the air. Fires flickered. People cried out and scattered. Anansi stumbled back as the ground beneath him seemed to tilt. No, he said, you cannot take them back. I paid. Nyame's voice softened. You paid the price to bring them down, not to keep them. The silence that followed felt endless. Then Nyame spoke the words that cracked Anansi open. Stories were never yours to own. They were only yours to return. The sky shifted. Anansi felt himself pulled upward, not gently, not violently, but inevitably. His feet left the ground as villagers screamed his name. Anansi! He reached out, grasping at air. I only wanted them to listen. I only wanted to matter. The sky did not answer. Then he fell, not from the sky, from himself. The fall was long enough for regret to find him, long enough for pride to loosen its grip, long enough for Anansi to understand that cleverness without humility becomes cruelty. He hit the ground hard. Pain tore through his body. Breath fled his lungs. The world spun. When he opened his eyes, the sky was far above him again, quiet, unreachable. The villagers gathered cautiously. Children stared, afraid. Elders whispered. Kwaku knelt beside him. "You are alive." Anansi tried to laugh, but it came out as a cough. "The sky spared me." "No," Kwaku said gently. "It returned you." Days passed. Anansi lay still, his body broken, his mind restless. He listened as stories were told again, not perfectly, not smoothly, but honestly. Different voices, different endings, different lessons, and somehow they felt truer. Children laughed again, not at clever tricks, but at shared mistakes. Elders argued, then agreed, then argued again. Stories breathed. Anansi realized something painful. They did not need him. The night he finally stood, leaning on his stick, he walked slowly to the edge of the village and looked up. "I understand now," he said quietly. The sky did not reply, but for the first time, it did not need to.
Anansi did not return to the center of the village immediately. For days he stayed at the edge, where the huts thinned and the trees began. His body healed faster than his pride. Each step still hurt, but not as much as watching life move on without him. Stories continued, not because anyone commanded them to, but because people needed them again. Children gathered in small groups, retelling half-remembered tales and correcting one another. Elders argued openly now, laughing when they disagreed. Some stories ended well, some ended badly. Some made no sense at all. Yet they were alive. Anansi listened from a distance, his heart tightening each time a story landed without his voice guiding it. So this is how it feels, he thought, to be unnecessary. One evening, Zuri, a young girl who used to follow him everywhere, noticed him standing alone. "Why don't you come closer?" she asked. Anansi hesitated. "Maybe they don't want me." Zuri frowned. "Stories don't belong to people," she said. "They belong to ears." The words stung because they were true. That night, Anansi finally stepped back beneath the tree. The fire crackled. Conversation slowed as people noticed him. No one stopped him. No one invited him either. He sat. An elder began a story. Clumsy, unsure, but honest. Halfway through, the lesson drifted. A younger man interrupted, correcting it. They argued softly, then laughed. Anansi felt the familiar urge rise in his chest. "That's wrong. I should fix it." He opened his mouth, then closed it. For the first time, Anansi chose silence. The story finished imperfectly, and the children still clapped. Later that night, Kwaku sat beside him. "You look lighter," the old man said. Anansi nodded. "I was carrying what wasn't mine." Kwaku smiled. Wisdom is heavy when one man tries to hold it. Anansi stared into the fire. "I thought if I controlled the stories, I could protect them." Kwaku shook his head. "Stories survive mistakes. They don't survive cages." The sky above them was calm, endless, uninterested. Days passed. Anansi began to help quietly. He fetched water, repaired stools. He listened more than he spoke. When children asked him for stories, he pointed them toward elders or toward one another. At first, this felt like punishment. Then, it felt like peace. One afternoon, a boy asked him directly, "Is it true you brought stories from the sky?" Anansi considered the question carefully. "I helped return them," he said, "but they were never mine." The boy frowned. Why did the sky keep them? Anansi looked out toward the horizon, to remind us that wisdom is borrowed, and borrowed things must be shared. That night, as the village slept, Anansi felt the urge to climb one last time. Not to demand, not to bargain, to speak. He climbed the tallest tree and looked upward. I was clever, but I forgot humility. The sky did not thunder, but a breeze moved through the branches, gentle and cool. Anansi took it as enough. From that day on, stories spread beyond the village. Travelers carried them, traders retold them. Each version changed slightly, shaped by new voices, new mistakes, new wisdom. Some stories praised cleverness, others warned against it. And in each one, hidden quietly between the lines, lived the lesson Anansi learned too late. That wisdom hoarded becomes poison, that intelligence without humility becomes cruelty, that stories fall best when no one stands beneath them claiming ownership. And that is why to this day, stories travel freely across villages and generations. Because once, a clever man climbed too high and learned that wisdom belongs to everyone. If this story touched your heart, subscribe for more stories where words carry weight. Comment what you would have done if you were Anansi. And if you want more powerful African folktales rooted in truth and life, subscribe to Baobab Folktales. Another story awaits beneath the Baobab.